kid from the bush who grew into a legend in his own lunchtime, former SAS soldier Michael J. Malone has seen it all. This is Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, hosted by the man himself, Mick Malone, along with Toby Malone, as they examine this long, storied career in the Australian Special Forces. Join us each week for behind-the-scenes insight, exclusive readings, and brutally honest truths from a true original. Welcome to Never Die Wondering. Welcome to episode 3 of Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, a podcast that explores the life and legend of Michael John Malone, OAM. My name is Toby Malone, Mick's son and co-host of this podcast series, joined by the man whose name is in the title, Mick Malone. G'day, Dad.
G'day, mate.
Today we're going to get into the book. We're reading Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Services. What does it feel like to pick the book up again after it's been a little over nearly 18 months since the book was published? Do you get a chance to read it back very often?
I do. I try and read a chapter every day if I can, just to make sure that my brain is not ossifying.
Well, it's an impressive tome. It's one of those books that when it's sitting on a table, you almost have to pick it up, which is why the booksellers are always contacting you and saying, "We need more. We need more."
Yeah.
So it's I think the proof is in the pudding there in terms of the quality of the book. I think people are very interested in buying it, and so it's stocked at Boffin's Books in Perth and at the 964 at Campbell Barracks, and they have a very hard time keeping it in stock because it is so well loved. And then it was released in paperback, but it was also released in a limited edition 50 copies of the hardback, which I have here with me, with a little bookmark. And
what number is that?
I have number 2. I have number 2 of 50, and that was what I asked for as my payment for.
I thought you lent that to somebody.
No, I lent my paperback copy to someone, and then that got misplaced, and that's okay. That's a good mate of mine, and I don't mind. I'll get another one. I know the publisher. So, as we start the Two Ranks in the Road, we were going to. I initially said to you, "Oh, okay, we'll just jump straight into chapter 1." But you said, "But what about the stuff before chapter 1?" And as of course, so today's episode is called Front Matter. We'll be talking about the information that happens in the acknowledgements and the preface before the narrative begins. And so you and I will read bits and pieces from this as we go through, and give us any kind of additional context if you have it, and if you don't, we'll just keep going. But if you're following along, we're starting right at page I, which is in the front matter. That means we're going from before, so in Roman numeral I, before the numbers start, on the dedication page. So when you started thinking about this book, when you started thinking about dedicating this book, was there any question about where you would be dedicating this?
Well, no, the dedication, the Malone family are always going to be the ones they're dedicated to.
Right.
Because of their service, World War II and Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. So why don't you read that dedication out just so that we can get that context?
Dedication. This book is dedicated to the Malone family, many of whom served in World War II and Vietnam. Also to those many gallant soldiers with whom I served who are no longer with us, rest in peace. Who dares wins.
So I think the thing I like about the dedication there is that the book really does do service to all of those blokes who are no longer with us, the guys who served, who did amazing things in combat or did amazing things in training, blokes who served. Yeah, there are a lot of guys who you serve with only briefly because then they died in training, or guys who went away to war and served bravely and then came back to WA and died, in training there. Things, Burma got blokes like that who were and so I feel as though this dedication gives us that sense that what you're doing is you're keeping them alive and their memories alive by
I think so.
using their names.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And then,
and
and then we've got
yeah, so who dares wins
yeah,
becomes
preface.
the work throughout. And so yeah, so we have our dedication, and then we have a table of contents, a very comprehensive table of contents. There is a typo in the contents, which is quite embarrassing, which we'll fix in future
A
future printings.
typo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
The full stop missing.
some of the numbers got messed up. So you can see if you're reading along, I'm acknowledging my faults. For whatever reason, it got messed up in the printing. Is that chapter 31 in the contents is misnumbered. So hopefully no one is using those numbers in the contents for much. But for whatever
Nobody's
reason,
ever going to notice, mate.
I know, but I'm bringing it up now because I noticed, and I don't want someone to say, "Well, I gotcha. Yeah, these blokes don't know what they're doing." For whatever reason, that mistake was made. So we have a table of contents which we work very hard on, and then we had a timeline because I thought that it was important to put together a timeline of your career from April 27th, 1947, when you were born, leading all the way up to current day, and so just lots of the major milestones in there that happened over the course of our lives or your life, and including birth of your children and your marriage and lots of different major geopolitical events that went on. So we had that time. I'm not going to read through the timeline, but I thought it was important just so that someone could get a snapshot
Yeah,
view
no,
of
it's a
your,
good one.
yeah, yeah. But to get into the meat of it all, the preface sort of gives us some context and gives us some context about the title of the book, Two Ranks in the Road. So this podcast is called Never Die Wondering. I was pushing for this book to be called Never Die Wondering because that was always a phrase that you used to use for me to say, you never want to get to the end of your life and wonder, what if? And so that was always a phrase that stuck with me, and it's something that really helped me throughout my life. And so I felt like that was a good encapsulation of your career. But you preferred Two Ranks on the Road because that was much more meaningful to you, and obviously you had the final say. So yeah,
You
that
want me to
was.
read the preface?
You can read it. I can read it. What would you prefer?
I'll read it.
All right. Okay, here we go. This is the
Preface.
preface. This is on page VII in the front matter of Two Ranks on the Road.
The title of this memoir, Two Ranks on the Road, comes from the exact moment I realised at 20 years old, I was playing with the big boys, running helter-skelter down a bush track in boots, green trousers and rifle, not knowing how far we would run, but giving it my all. The two ranks formation, as opposed to the more formal three ranks, was defined by my army has defined my army career and led me to this point. The problem with writing a memoir 30 years since I served is my memory's not as sharp as it once was. I regret never keeping a diary like others, like Blue Burridge and Dave Sabin, but we were forbidden to do so by virtue of the unit we're in. I've always prided myself with a prodigious memory, especially names, faces, and facts. I studied ancient and modern history at school and had no trouble remembering all sorts of dates, battles, emperors, kings, and seminal turning points in history. Ah, mate. This project, however, has demonstrated how my memory has deteriorated ever so slightly as I approach my 77th year. It's a good thing in which to be immersed. To that end, I apologise to anyone mentioned who may take my comments in a negative way. Sorry, but these are historical facts, albeit faded memories of incidents, locations, and events. In the same vein, historians and close readers might notice that there are things missing, events, dates, and names. If you're involved in an event and I haven't mentioned you, please accept my apologies. Sometimes I can blame memory. Um, sometimes I have left things out to avoid offence or embarrassment. Any army jargon that may seem excessive will be clear to those who have served, whilst those um, while those who need some help should go straight to the glossary at the back. The military language becomes second nature after a while, but I hope I've written it in such a way to be clear to most. I hope that you'll notice as you read that I enjoyed my service greatly. I met some outstanding soldiers of all ranks and showed great leadership, mateship, and resilience that led me to in the right direction. There was a small minority who decided to make life hard for a few of us, but that hang on. But that, as it may, I even learned from their negative vibes. As I rose through the ranks, I had the chance to mentor countless young soldiers who seemed to respond to my particular methods and approach. And I'd like to think that this book might serve as a record of the importance I placed on bringing impressive young diggers along. I hope this memory goes some way to explaining the life of a simple soldier and how, through hard work and persistence, what can be achieved. Thanks, one and all.
There you go. So it feels like you've covered your bases there.
Yeah.
In case anyone says, "Oh, I was there. You don't mention me," or has anyone pulled you up about anything you've missed over the last 18 months?
Not really. People don't worry about that much too much.
Yeah. I think one of the things I think one of the things you cover very well in the book is that anytime you can remember someone being there, you mention their name. And so when my wife read the book, she said, "There are so many names. There are just lists and lists of names of blokes, so I have no idea who they are." And so, and you know, and I'd have to say to her, "Yeah, but that's important to the people who are there. If you get mentioned in dispatches, that's a big deal." So yeah, there are a lot of mentions of individuals, and many people can find their names in there. I think you were yeah, you without mentioning any names, you were telling a story years ago about a bloke that you knew who uh, went straight to the index of a book to see if he was mentioned before he would be interested in buying it, and then he went, "Nah, I don't want it. I'm not in there." Or on. Uh, uh,
There'll be a few of them.
yeah, I mean, and I think that was done in a good-natured way. I don't think he was being toey. I think it was more just that he had um, an expectation and went, "Oh, well, if I'm not in there, then I'm not going to buy it." So I think a lot of blokes are going to be very pleased. And I think there was some of your old mates like Jack Doulis and Pancho Kirkes were delighted about how they were featured in the book. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Poor old Jack died recently.
Yeah, I know. Rest in peace, Jack. He was a good bloke, really. And we'll hear about him in the early pages of this book. You went through early training with him, and he said he was a real character. I remember meeting him when I was a teenager, and he showed up, and he was yeah, lovely bloke.
Yeah. Yeah. Mad Greek.
So yeah, so that is the preface, just giving a sense, and yeah, the idea that what we're doing is not exactly rocket science. We're not. This is not an exact replica of what happened, but this is a memory, and so trying to look back on 30 years, it's not exactly going to be perfect, but we do our best. And then finally, before the book itself starts, we have an acknowledgements page where you acknowledge all the people who have contributed to the book. So, do you want to just read that acknowledgements page just
Yeah.
to throw out the plaudits to the people who deserve?
Acknowledgements. This is IX.
Yeah.
To produce a book like this, there are a myriad of people to thank. The first being Dr. Toby Malone, who edited this work with an inch of his life. Efforts on the index is a work of intricate detail and a joy to behold. Not one page is avoided forensic gaze. But not least is the remarkable Jo Malone, who published this book under her banner of Imprimatur Books. She dealt with all the photos, liaised with Boffin Books to arrange the launch, worked with Rachel Davison in all marketing and PR aspects. Jo also worked with the redoubtable Steve Little of Data Documents on the production schedule, book layout, and timelines. Thanks also to Daniel James Grant Photography for wrangling old and scratchy photos, providing new ones. Thanks to Mil Kirkes, with whom I served in Vietnam and who is the author of the poem Serving with Private Malone, which can be found as Appendix B. Then there is the remarkable list of old soldiers and of a few civilians who were kind enough to critically review this work. They are Matt Bulio, DSC, John Carter, Patrick Cullinan, SC, OAM, Guy Dazinski, Mal Ticker Gray, Martin Hamilton Smith, Georgia Malone, Liam Phillips, Bob Quadling, Tim Ryan, John Tick, and Mike Wells. I thank them all profusely. Lastly, I thank Bill Littleow and Lou Pontarolo, proprietors of Boffin's Books Perth, for their enthusiasm for this project and making space for us in their busy schedule for the launch. I have a deep sense of appreciation and respect for all those men and women, many of them my heroes and mentors, who have assisted me along my 35-year journey, many of whom feature in this memoir, and the many who don't.
It's great. So it was a team effort to get this thing up and running. A lot of different people.
Absolute team effort.
And so, yeah, it was all. I remember in a previous episode we talked about the SAS Pictorial History, which was published in 1997 for the 40th anniversary of the regiment, and I remember that being a team effort as well, with the photos spread out all over our kitchen table, and my mum and my sister and myself helping organize photos and put it all together. And it's nice to have that in the DNA of a book like that, and have the input of people. And
it is, yeah,
yeah,
it is.
And it's particularly when we lose people. So one of the people you mentioned there is Georgia Malone, my sister, my beloved sister, who we lost in April of this year to cancer, and a real devastating blow to our family. And part of the reason why this podcast exists is because I really believe that we have to grab the time while we have the time, because but Georgia loved the process of this book as well. She read and she gave insightful feedback. Her husband, John Carter, also gave wonderful feedback, as well as a lot of the other people you serve with, mates of mine. Liam Phillips is a good mate of mine, who are able to just give different perspectives, because sometimes you kind of assume that knowledge is general, or that everyone knows what a certain abbreviation means, and it takes a different perspective to someone to say, I don't know what that means. What is it? An LUP? I don't know what that is. And then you go, oh, that's obvious, isn't it? But you go, no, let's just contextualize it. And that's why it's one of the things that we'll get to as we read the book, is that we have footnotes. There'll be many footnotes that with that context. So plenty of footnotes that we'll have to we'll insert as we go, as we read through the book. So lots of people to acknowledge, and lots of great moments to take into account of. So that is it's the front matter. We also have the back matter. We won't get into it, and I promise we won't spend an entire episode on the index. I was very proud of that index. I tend to. So just to give a bit of context, I've written a few books, and I wrote a book years ago that the publisher said, we will index it for you. So they sent the index away to India to be indexed, and it was indexed by someone who didn't have a great grasp on the English language, and so it was very poorly indexed. And I had to correct a lot of it and really sort of make a lot of changes, and realize that I'll never let anyone index any of my work ever again. And so have taken on the chance of indexing, and I find it a really useful way of getting to know the book and sort of getting to know what's in there and making sure there's no repetition and making sure that it's covered. Because if someone wants to see, like for example, your mate who wanted to find his name in the book, you want to make sure that if he's in there, he should be able to find where he is. So I indexed my second book, and then I also indexed Simo and Two Ranks and Hail Mary the Creek's Up, and really love that process, and that's a real part of it. And sometimes I'd walk into the room and find you reading the index like it was the newspaper. You'd just be sitting there, allowing that to take you back. So,
Way to do it, mate. If you see people's names in the index, you think, oh God, I remember that. And
yeah.
you don't have to go back to the text. You just have to see his name to remember the incident.
That's right. Yeah. So we won't spend a whole episode talking about the index, I promise. But yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge it here. It was I really love doing it. But it's one of those important things. So that is the front and back matter of Two Ranks. There is a little bit more back matter which we'll get to much later. But that is this episode. So anything else to say about that front matter? Anything you missed? Anything that
No, we've covered it all. The
Good.
timeline's the only thing, which I think maybe you should put in there.
Yeah. Oh, so I mean, we certainly acknowledge the timeline, and the timeline is an important thing, and talks about those important elements that are.
You want me to read through the timeline?
No. We won't read the timeline. We'll
All right. Okay.
Yeah. No. I think we'll leave it at. But that is all the time we have this week for Never Die Wondering. Join us next week for the next installment in our exploration of Mick Malone's career as we get into the first chapter of the book itself, entitled Aimless. If you have a copy of Two Ranks, read along with us. I've been Toby Malone, and thank you to Mick Malone for willingly joining me on this journey. Thanks, Dad.
On your mate.
All right. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's all right. Do you want to talk to your mother?
Yeah, I'm just going to stop recording. Hang on.
While we're on here.
This has been Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words. For links to purchase your own copies of Mick's books, visit the show notes or mickmalone.com.au. This podcast is produced by Toby Malone, Joe Malone, and Mick Malone, and engineered by Toby Malone. Theme music is The Happy Wanderer, the official SAS march, as reimagined by Cormac Malone and Meg Logue Malone. Yes, this is a family affair. This is a GM production in association with Imprimatur Books.